Hey there, everybody. This is Wendy Hernandez, and welcome back for another episode of the Family Law Insider podcast. Do you want to get to happy in your life? Who doesn't? I do. But is there at least one area of your life where you're not happy? There is for me, and I think that there probably is for everybody. Is there something that you can do to change that? I think so. I hope so. And that's why I have today's guest here joining me, the wonderful Dossey. He's the man, the myth, the legend. He's the guy that helps people get unstuck, and I'm so thrilled to have him. Welcome, Les, and thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Wendy. I'm glad to be here.
I'm so glad to have you, and in case there's some of you out there who don't know, Les does have his own show. I think it's called Getting Unstuck with Les. Is that right?
Yeah, sure is.
Okay, and what day does that show air on HOAs, Les?
Every Tuesday, 2:30 Eastern Time.
All right, so take note of that if you don't already know already. The reason I wanted to talk to Les about this particular topic is because I had read a post he did, within the last few weeks. I think it was like 103 things to kind of move your life along or do better in 2014. And one of the ideas that he had that really spoke to me was about redefining experiences and kind of shifting the focus. And I thought this was really powerful because I know from my own personal experience I have some memories and some things that have happened in my past that are really painful or that I'm still very angry about, that I've been unable to move on or forgive or do what I need to do to just get past these things. And I suspect that's the case for a lot of people. So I thought, what a gift it would be if we could talk to Les about how to get past something that is painful. So Les,
yeah.
If somebody has something in their past that's really hard, like maybe a spouse who cheated or a child who died, or they're battling something like a serious disease, cancer, can they get to happy even through something that's as heavy and big as that?
Well, I think they can. And the reason I say that is because I've done it myself and I've helped other people do it. So I think it takes a real desire to feel good and be happy again, though, Wendy. And once you stir that desire up, then it takes some courage to let go of, so that you can let go of the hurt, so that you can redefine that situation or that event in a new way, so that it provides you with a different perspective. It's kind of detached from the ill feelings that you have been experiencing. And so maybe the best way for me to address that would be to share with you a couple of ways that I've used what I'm talking about myself in my own life, if that's okay with you.
That would be great. And I have a question before you dive into that, because I think one of the things you mentioned was that the person needs to have a real desire to feel differently or to get to a different place.
Right.
And when something big happens and somebody doesn't like the way that they are feeling, do you think that part of that is always a desire to feel something different? Or do you think there's times when people maybe are kind of addicted to feeling like crap, if you will?
Well, I think that what and I'm going on my own experience here because everybody is different, but I think what happens is you just get so tangled up in the emotion, in the darkness, that it's kind of hard to escape. And so you have to stir it up yourself. You have to stir up this desire to escape that and get into a place that's better than. It's like, Wendy, one of the things that I decided to do about 15 years ago was that if I'm going to live 24 more hours, and I reasoned with myself that if I'm going to live 24 more hours, and there's a pretty good chance that I am, then I'm going to do everything that I can to feel as good as possible in that 24 hours. So I need to organize my thoughts better. I need to structure my life better so that 24 hours gives me every opportunity I can to feel good and be happy.
Yeah.
Which means I have to examine and be honest with myself about the way things really are. So many people, they'll take an event and they'll exaggerate it and blow it up and make it way bigger than what it is. What we really need to do is see it exactly as it is, and now how can we make it better than that?
Okay.
That's where it all starts. So,
okay.
Hope that helps.
All right. So maybe a first step then for somebody who's really tangled up in the web of emotion is to just look at what the event is, what really happened, without over exaggerating or blowing it out of proportion.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
You know, the other thing that, and this is going to be painful for a lot of people, because if they're really hurting, they're probably not going to want to hear this, but it's important, and that is this: you have to be willing to accept 100% responsibility for the things that happen in your life. Because,
Sorry, go ahead. Because
because in most cases, we're responsible for creating the hardships and the challenges and the heartache that we experience in our life. Now, you know, there are exceptions. I didn't ask for my first son to die when he was 5. But most of the other heartache that I experienced over a 30-year stretch was stuff that I created because of my wretched thinking. And I'm not saying it was all wretched, Wendy. I mean, it was ineffective. It was unright. It was in error. It was, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was not effective. And so because I didn't have effective thinking or understanding, I made certain choices and took certain actions that ended up creating this loop where that was a seed that was planted, or the cause that created an effect that came back and bit me in the butt at some point. And I ended up experiencing a lot of pain. Yeah, I got tangled up in a marriage I shouldn't have gotten tangled up in. And the whole time I was in the marriage, I thought that it was all, the reason I was miserable was because of her.
Right.
And it had nothing to do with her. It had everything to do with me. And I kept blaming her until one day I got honest with myself and I said, man, there's a pattern here. I keep repeating it. What do I have to do to quit repeating this pattern? Because this sucks.
Yeah.
Well, I got honest with myself and, well, wait a minute. You know, put your big boy pants on, kick off your high heels, and let's get honest. And the more I examined it, the more I realized that it had nothing to do with her. I was the one that asked her to marry me. I was the one that courted her and wooed her and convinced her to accept my proposal. I was the one that went out and, focused on my business and gave her no attention after we got married. So, I was doing all of these things that made her miserable, so she treated me miserably. But I was blind to all that in the heat of the moment. Once I realized that's what I was doing, and I took responsibility for it, then I began to see it. Right, it began to become clear to me that I was the responsible party. I was the one that created the heartache.
And I think that if everybody could look at whatever problems they have in their lives from that viewpoint, I mean, that would really help people make great strides in terms of moving forward.
Yeah.
And in my practice, unfortunately, as a divorce attorney, so many people I have come in and they blame whatever their money problems are, the infidelity problems they have, on someone else. They're not willing to accept the responsibility that you're talking about now.
Right.
So when somebody does accept responsibility with themselves, do you think part of moving on must include going to the other person or other people and saying, listen, this is what the situation is, this is what's real, this is my part in this, my role in whatever the situation is, and I'm sorry. Do you think that's necessary?
Well, we can't really move on until we find a way to forgive and forget. And as hard as that is to accomplish, unless it's done, then there's this shame and guilt and resentment and hatred bound up on the inside of you that blinds you and keeps you from being able to see the truth. And so what will happen is you'll continue to make bad decisions in those kinds of situations and find yourself right back there again, just with somebody different. Not to mention the health risks associated with it. I mean, forgiveness is not about forgiving them as much as it is about freeing yourself. Yeah. So that's tough. I mean, you got to have courage to let somebody go who maybe abused you or mistreated you or didn't live up to your expectations or cheated on you or whatever. But the question you have to ask yourself is, do I want to be free? Do I want to feel good? Do I want to be happy? If I'm going to live 24 more hours, how do I want to live it? And if letting go of that and forgetting so that I can be happy and feel better is what I got to do, then by God, I'm going to do it.
Yeah. Do you think that letting go and forgiving is as easy as making a choice and that it's something that can happen in an instant, or is this something that takes time?
Well, the short answer is yes. It can be done in an instant, but the long answer is it's going to take time to persuade yourself that that's the case. When I first started making the shift myself, I had 30 years of judging and criticizing everybody. And when I realized that was what I was doing, and I became resolute about changing that, I woke up and I said, this is ridiculous. Why am I judging and criticizing everybody? They haven't done anything to deserve that. Well, once I became resolute about it, it certainly became easier, but it took consistent practice every single day before I got to the place where I could forgive somebody in the moment and not give it another thought. I mean, I don't think it's possible now to offend me. I really don't. I don't care who you are and what you do, because I've been practicing it long enough now. Because, again, that guiding thought is in my head. I want to feel good and I want to be happy, because I know that in that state I'm able to live my purpose, live my passion, contribute fully. And not in that state, I can't.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, definitely.
Being out of that state takes me out of my purpose. It takes me away from my passion. It keeps me from being able to contribute fully. It keeps me from being able to live fully. So, yeah. Short answer is yes. Long answer is takes time.
All right. Based on my own experience and the experiences of the people who are close to me, it seems like that a lot of people are wired to be judgmental, negative, and gossipy, or they have learned that way of being. Would you agree that more people are that way than are not that way?
Wendy, I would say that every behavior is a habit that's developed. It's not innate, it's not born into them, it's not a curse. It's a habit that they've developed over time, and most of that programming takes place when they're small, when they're young. So it's the people that they're around who influence them that determine, in large part, how they behave, how they act later on in life. Unless they encounter somebody who changes the course of their life and influences them in a good way. Jim Rohn, and I followed Jim Rohn for years, he says that in 5 years you'll be the equivalent of the people you hang around, the books you read, and the stuff you listen to. So that should help a lot of people. If there's anybody out there who's stuck and maybe feeling bad and is unhappy, you need to protect and preserve this computer that you have, right? I'm using that as a reference. Good input in, good output, right? Bad input in, bad output. Bad output equals bad input coming back in necessarily, because it's all cause and effect, Wendy. Right? I mean, I have a thought, and if my thought's effective, I take action on it, and I usually end up getting a good effect. But if my thoughts are ineffective, I take action on it, and then the effect coming back is not pleasing.
I absolutely agree. And there was a time in my life, I would say like 10 years ago, where almost every thought that came into my head was just a horrendous thought about myself. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough to have a man and keep a man. Every man that I have will cheat on me. And I don't even know where these thoughts came from, to be honest. I mean, you're saying that they came from programming. I don't know. So they came from my past somewhere, but I'm not really sure what happened. But one day I realized, like, gosh, I worked myself into a frenzy. Like, I would work myself into tears by thinking these things over and over and over. And I decided to change my thinking. And I still struggle with these negative thoughts, but they're not as much as they, or as many as they used to be.
Yeah. It takes courage, it takes practice, it takes a real commitment to undo that when you're bombarded with it like you're talking about. And I've been there. It it's been a long time since I was there, but I've been there, so
Yeah.
I can relate. Back to you said redefining things.
Yes, yeah, I'm glad that you circled back because we kind of got
Yeah.
off track. Yes, let's
I,
talk
I want to explain
redefining.
what I mean by that, because it's the meanings that we hold within our nervous system or within our psychology that determine how we see things, how we see people, how we see situations, how we see ourselves. It's those meanings. The thing that most people don't realize is that you can change those meanings. You can change them in a moment of time if you're committed to being more effective, to experiencing more happiness, to feeling better in your life. And so, for instance, when my 5-year-old died, he was not quite 5. He was 4 in a few months when he died. And in the moment, that was extremely painful. I felt guilt. I felt shame. I felt responsible. I felt evil. I mean, just about every kind of dark feeling you could imagine, I felt it as a result of his death. At the time, I was tangled up in religion, and not that religion is a bad thing unless it tangles you all up and hems you in so that you can't breathe, so that you can't move, so that you're not free. Anyway, so all of this stuff was tangled up on the inside of me, and I really spun out of control, Wendy. It was horrible.
Yeah.
But then, I had one of those moments where I said, do you want to keep feeling this way, or do you want to move on with your life? Do you want to feel better? And, in that moment, being immature, being really uneducated about the stuff we're talking about today, I didn't have any real coping mechanisms. I didn't know where to turn or what to do. So it was kind of hard for me to move past it. The only way I could move past it was to kind of isolate it and focus on my profession, to focus on my job, focus on drinking.
Yeah.
Right? So I was doing all of the wrong things to deal with my pain and the grief and the heartache that I felt. So later on in life, when I realized what was going on and I got educated and I became interested in the stuff that we're talking about now and I began to understand it, that was when I learned how to redefine it so that I could move on and be free from it, so I could talk about it with somebody like you without getting emotional, without getting all bent out of shape as a result. So here's what I ended up having to do. I had to look at it honestly, and I had to say, okay, my son's dead. He's no longer with me. I can't do anything about that. I can't change it. He's gone. And in the moment, I made a decision that I would no longer look at it the way that I had been looking at it. And from now on, when I looked at it, I would look at it as he was with me for 4.5 years, and he made amazing contributions to my life.
Yeah.
And I began to focus on all of those contributions. And in focusing on those contributions, like, for instance, he used to put olives on all of his fingers at dinner time, black olives. It was one of his favorite things to do. The focusing on that and the feeling that it stirred up on the inside of me gave me strength to allow him to be dead, allow him to be gone out of my life, and be free from the grief and the sorrows, so that I could feel good and be happy and make genuine contributions to humanity.
So from his death, and I'm sorry, I'm emotional right now, Lass.
Quite all right.
Just listening to that story and having a child of my own, it's just...
Yeah.
Gosh. So when somebody's gone through an experience like that, you just talked about accepting the reality of the experience and then focusing on, I guess, the gift in that person or in the experience. Is that what you're saying?
Well, for me, that's the way that I got past it. Now,
Yeah.
it might be different for someone else, but I chose to look at all of the wonderful things, all the wonderful contributions he made to my life, not only to my life, but to everybody else that he touched. And I kept my focus there. And as a result, when I think about him, and I think about him often, in fact, his picture's right there.
Oh, we can't see it.
His picture's...
We see Einstein.
There it is. But that took me out of the frame. But yeah, when I focus or when I think about him, it's in that way. And I did the same thing with both of my siblings. I lost both of them to freakish kind of deaths early, and ended up becoming a single child again. And there's so many other areas where it's possible just to redefine the way that you see something. I don't know who to attribute this to, because I've heard it in so many different places, but it's been said that if you change the way you think about and look at things, the things you think about and look at change.
Yes, I've heard that too.
Yeah, it's a pretty powerful principle, but you have to have courage to take action on that. And you have to sort of explore exactly what it means. It's like, if I held this tube up like this and showed it to you, what you see is probably a little dot, maybe, but if I turn it, you can see it differently. And if I turn it another way, you see it another direction.
Yeah, so I love that.
Right? So if I have a situation in my life that's challenging, my responsibility is to look at it in as many different ways as I can to try and get fresh perspective and to see it from somebody else's point of view, to try to understand it and take any lessons that I can from it. And in doing so, I empower myself instead of locking myself down and making myself feel miserable. Right? It's a very proactive approach. Stephen Covey would call it being proactive. It's like, okay, I've got the situation. What can I do to influence it and change it and learn from it? And, he would say circle of concern, circle of influence. If it's in my circle of influence, then I'm going to give it my energy. I'm going to see what I can do to affect it in a positive way. If it's not, and it's in my circle of concern, I'm going to leave it over here and let it take care of itself because I can't do anything about it anyway.
Right.
And if I'm in the circle of concern messing with it, then I'm stirring up anxiety and fear and worry and all these other ineffective emotions that aren't going to help me move forward in my life, aren't going to help me make contributions to others, and aren't going to bring back to me the things that I want to experience in my life. That takes discipline and courage to do that, but that's what you got to do.
Definitely, and actually on that point, I think it's a great opportunity. We have some viewers out there. Hi everybody, JD, I saw Yassine, Laura, of course, Hernandez Family Law, Shannon, Luke's out there. But I have a question that I am going to try to put up on the screen from Laura Williams. Laura says, "Isn't the first thing to accept and make a change is to realize that you can't change others and remove people, if possible, that aren't emotional and spiritually beneficial to you?" Is that what you're talking about there, Les, in terms of circle of influence or non-circle of influence?
Could you put that question back up again?
Sure.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. She said to realize that you can't change others. There's absolutely no way to change others, and trying to is futile. It's a recipe for misery. As far as removing people or separating yourself from people who are toxic, I think until you get to the place where you're in control of your state, but that's absolutely the right thing to do. Once you get to where you've developed a discipline of maintaining your state, then you can introduce those kind of people back into your life and affect them and inspire them and encourage them in a positive way. But until you get to that place, you need to be in a safe place so that development can happen. That's the reason why Jim Rohn said, you will be in 5 years the equivalent of the people you hang around, the books you read, and the stuff you listen to. So my advice is, unplug from anything that is toxic, that's not giving. I think about it like this: I'm a high-performance machine.
Yeah.
A high-performance machine requires the best fuel on the planet. So I'm not gonna plug into things that are gonna dilute my fuel source, right? They're not gonna fill me with crap.
Yeah.
Except that now, Wendy, in my position, I'm dealing with people all the time who are in that state. But I'm at this place in my life now where I'm 100% in control of my state, so it doesn't affect me, it doesn't impact me.
So what would you suggest, Les, then, for somebody
Uh-huh.
who has somebody in their life, like a husband or a
Yeah.
sibling or a parent who you would describe as toxic,
Mm-hmm.
and it's kind of hard to extricate yourself from,
Yeah.
being a family member or being married to somebody. What do you suggest in situations like that?
It's certainly tough, and I work with couples all the time. In fact, I have several couples now I'm working with. But the one thing that I would say, and when I bring them into coaching or counseling, I'll say to them, look, you have to commit to me to work on you. We can't do anything about the other person. All we can do is help you think more effectively. All we can do is help you organize your thoughts properly. If you're committed to doing that, then what that will do is it will help influence and, in an indirect way, the situation. More importantly, what's going to happen is it's going to help you become strong enough to take a stand and not play the game anymore. That's what happens oftentimes, Wendy, is that you got a victim and a persecutor, and they found each other. And until until one of them says, I ain't playing the game no more, they'll just get in this loop and they'll just keep playing it over and over and over again.
Right.
Somebody's got to say, no, I'm not playing anymore.
So when you say somebody's got to say, no, I'm not playing anymore, do you think that they really need to go to the other person and say, no, I'm not playing this anymore, or can they just cut it off? What do you think about that?
Well, I think the person, once they've been coached enough, and once they've untangled their thinking enough, they're able to then make the decision within themselves, no, I'm not playing anymore. Which means basically that if somebody is still being abusive or is being critical or whatever it is that they're doing, they're able to say, you know what, I'm not letting this bother me anymore. I'm diffusing all of my hot buttons. I've diffused all of my hot buttons. You can't push them anymore.
Yeah.
Right? Because in relationships especially, people get really good at figuring out where the buttons are. And that's where they go to incite whatever, to feed the fire, so to speak. Well, once the person says, no, I'm not playing the game anymore, with themselves, they're in essence saying, no, I'm diffusing all the buttons. You can't push him anymore. You have no control over me.
Yeah.
Read about Viktor Frankl. If that's who you are out there in the audience and you're having trouble with that, read anything you can get your hands on by Viktor Frankl. Viktor was in a concentration camp and saw some of the most atrocious, god-awful, evil things you've ever imagined in your life. And the way that he got through that is exactly what you have to do if you're in a toxic situation yourself and you don't see a way to leave. Separate yourself from it.
So do you think that Viktor was able then to redefine his circumstance or his situation then?
That's exactly what he did. What he did was he cast a vision for himself and began to live that vision in his mind until it became so real to him that everything that was going on around him no longer had any effect over him, even though it was pure evil.
Yeah.
I mean, he was in a Nazi concentration camp. So his vision was, I'm going to be teaching people these principles that I've learned in this god-awful place at some point in the future. And he began visualizing that, and he got a picture of that in his mind's eye, and it pulled him through all of those things he was going through without him losing his mind, without him losing his love for people, without him harboring unforgiveness and hatred towards the people that were persecuting everybody.
Right.
He took responsibility and really Viktor Frankl was really responsible for so many self-help gurus, so to speak, gurus or specialists or practitioners. The principles that he taught, we're all using. So Viktor is like, the great one to study if that's the state that you're in right now. That's the position you're in right now.
So
Of course,
I think.
if you don't have the courage or the strength to do that on your own, then raise your hand and ask for some help from a coach like me or somebody.
That's right. Definitely. Les is a great guy to help you with the reframing and redefining, and I think you've given us a lot of awesome ideas, and it's already time to go, Les.
It doesn't take long, does it?
It flies by. I feel like I need to have a longer show. Before we go, I want to pin something and see if you have any, or post something and see if you have any thoughts to add. And this is from, I'm not sure if I'm saying it right, Yassine. Forgive me if I'm butchering it. Any experience is an opportunity to learn more about life. It might change some early beliefs, but when it is time for change, life will let you know if you don't choose to before. Any parting thoughts on that comment, Les?
Well, I absolutely agree with Yassine. I think that the people who enjoy, the most happiness in life are the ones who've learned how to dance with both sides of the coin. They've learned how to dance with pain and with happiness, with death and with life, and with sickness and with health, and with challenges and breakthroughs. They've learned how to dance with it all. And instead of trying to avoid it or medicate it or numb it or beat it to death, they just look it in the eye and say, "Come on, let's dance. Let's dance. Teach me what you got to teach me, and tell me what you got to tell me, and then I'm going to lead, because this is my dance. I'm going to lead you across the dance floor, escort you out the back door so I can move on with my life." Yeah, absolutely.
That's powerful. That's beautiful. And I was telling you in the green room earlier that I was listening to your Danger Zone HOA that you did last week, and you told the story of how you counsel your clients through dancing with fear, and I love that. So I'm going to start using it. And anybody out there who's listening now or who listens in the future, that's a great place to start. Les has given us a lot of ideas to work with, and Viktor Frankl to think about, and maybe check out some of his work. So thank you so much, Les, for joining us.
You're welcome, Wendy. I enjoyed it.
I did too, and I can't wait to talk to you more and see more of you on Google+. So that's going to do it for this week's episode of the Family Law Insider Podcast. Remember, we're on your side when it matters most, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.